April 19th. Sally opened the door and let us in. I haven't been to this house for many years. I own a residential real estate company. As part of this business, I buy houses from time to generate rental income. I only handle the business side of rentals, and I have a property staging company that does cleaning and keeping things clean. After purchasing, I rarely, if ever, see my items. The house made a pleasant impression. A small hall led to a large room just down the hall. To the right was the office, followed by the kitchen and dining room. To the left was a corridor, presumably leading to the bedrooms. The previous tenant, Walter Bicknell, was a man difficult to describe. He was one of the strangest people I've ever met. When I spoke to him, he seemed to be only half present, constantly looking off into space, perhaps even literally. Maybe you would believe him, but I never would. Walt called me out of the blue. This house was for rent, and I was asking a little more for it than the handbook suggested. I had potential tenants, but I didn't like them. They had a questionable credit history. Walt wanted to rent this particular house and offered to pay $200 more than what I was offering, even though my price was already high. This proposal intrigued me. I asked why. Sorry, I asked. He told me that the previous tenant had won about $500,000 in the lottery. Walt then said that the alien told him that he, too, would win the lottery, and I quote the alien, not because of his talent, but his transformation would occur as a consequence of his living in this house. I don't believe in aliens. If they existed, they would not use words like Sagashi insight, transmogrification transformation, and precursor. I carefully reviewed all my knowledge in my mind, trying to come up with a reasonable answer. But he didn't find anything suitable and said, "Have aliens probed you?" "I'm not talking about it. Will you accept my offer? I need to move into the house as soon as possible." Honestly, I had no idea what he or his alien was talking about. I told Walt I had to talk to the other candidate first. I hung up the phone and looked at the words, sagacity, insightful wisdom, transmogrification transformation in a surprising or magical way, antecedent a previous event or cause. In other words, it is the move to the house, not his talent, that will magically turn him into a lottery winner. This idea seemed completely ridiculous to me. This man hears voices. Is it even ethical to take money from him? Being a pragmatist, I decided that ethics had nothing to do with it. I was not his doctor. I was a potential landlord. And as such, it doesn't matter who whispers in his ear, even if it's the dragon puff. If he pays rent on time, even more so voluntarily increases the rent. I decided to keep information about him to myself. It was not beneficial for me to tell people that I was charging extra money for a person who spoke to aliens. The attention of neighbors to some magical house could be to my detriment. Besides, I had no evidence of aliens, only the chatter of a boring talker. As I looked around the house, sadness came over me. It was supposed to generate additional income for me and my wife. But even worse was the realization that the phrase, "for my wife and I," no longer made sense. But this is jumping a couple of weeks ahead. April 5th. My name is Don Wilson, and I'm 38 years old. I found out that my wife of 14 years was cheating on me. The neighbor hinted. I asked her directly, and she actually gave me the standard answer from a manual for unfaithful wives. "So, it's just sex. If you do something, I'll get a house, children, alimony, financial support." She added an unusual phrase, "and I'll have to look for another partner because I'll probably lose you." I didn't answer. I was dumbfounded this kind of indifference. My wife, who I built my life around, said she would do as she pleased and possibly lose me. Maybe he will lose. Unable to find anything to say, I turned around, packed a small suitcase with 2 days' worth of things and left. Confirming her feelings for me, she also said nothing. I was stunned. 14 years old, 2 children, big plans, no visible problems, and maybe he'll lose me. I was driving, following the car, not leading it. A motel appeared on the horizon, and I turned there. It wasn't a very nice place, but there was a restaurant attached to it. There was a shopping center with a liquor store nearby. Everything you need. I wasn't hungry, so I skipped dinner and went to the liquor store. I looked at the Scotch whiskey and decided to take half a liter. It was enough to get me drunk before bed, but not so much that I would be useless in the morning. Heartless wife, no dinner and Scotch whiskey, a bad evening. There wasn't even a call. I am a successful person, in good shape, making good money, and maybe. I've never been unhappy or depressed. I don't recommend it. 2 sips later, honestly, each sip was half a bottle, and I was unconscious. I didn't sleep well. The next day, while maybe was at work and my son's at school, I returned to our former home and packed most of my clothes. I called work and said I would take the weekend. Went back to my motel to have breakfast. Went to the liquor store to get another Scotch whiskey for the day. Decided to have Scotch whiskey for before and after dinner. Where did I go wrong? I tried to think about our life, but not a single thought stuck in my head. My thoughts persistently returned to the question, should I start drinking in the morning? If I start, there will be enough time to buy another half liter. How could what we had be reduced to, maybe? I was drowning in self-flagellation. The day flew by, it was time for dinner, and after my first sip, I remembered that I had to eat. I don't remember what I ate. Then I went back to my room for a second sip and checked my phone. I kept my phone off, my only contact with the world. There were no calls from work, that was good. There were no calls at all, which made me even more depressed. I turned off the phone again and went to bed. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday were like in the movie Groundhog Day, repetition of despair, fighting the desire to drown him in booze, inability to think, much less think usefully, food, buying half a liter, drinking, eating, drinking, and sleeping. On Monday, I sat down a little early for my first meal, drove to work, and stared blankly at the computer. The day passed, I returned to the motel, bought half a liter, and everything happened again. Wednesday was the 6th iteration of Groundhog Day when Walter Bicknell re-entered my life. He came to the office and told me he was moving out of my rental property, another disappointment. Walt was a great tenant. No fuss, no complaints from or to him, and he always paid his too high rent on time. He smiled and was delighted and asked me, "Don't you want to know why?" The reason turned out to be the strangest, most significant, and confusing thing in my life. It turns out that Walt won a big prize in the lottery on Saturday night, just over $26 million. He gave me a check for rent for 6 months in advance, said that he would leave on Friday in a week, and promised to let me know when he left. Maybe there really is a benevolent alien in this house who is keeping an eye on its residents. I remembered that strange conversation and the almost mysterious way in which Walt learned of his impending victory. I still didn't believe it, but now how could I not believe it? I couldn't think of a reasonable question to ask Walt. So, Walt, is the alien watching you or the house? He looked at me as if I was an alien myself. What a strange thing. I don't know what you're talking about. You offered to pay me more rent because the alien said that if you lived in my house, you would win the lottery. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I didn't say that. I'll call when I leave. All the best. More and more strange, Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland came to my mind. The alien spoke to him. He should rent my house. He pays more, wins, and now he claims to know nothing. Maybe he is afraid of public condemnation if people find out that he won with the help of extraterrestrial beings. Or worse, he's afraid that claiming alien intervention will invalidate his winnings. What was even stranger was that I just needed a place to live. I'm stuck in a crappy motel, and then Walt comes along, pays the rent up front, and moves out of my house. His visit was like a wake-up call for me. I didn't live, I just waited. What the hell were you waiting for? It's been a week since I packed some things and left, and in that time I haven't done anything. Well, nothing is putting it mildly. I endlessly re-evaluated my life, wallowed in self-judgment, ignored my sons, and poured whiskey into myself every day. The next day I went to the former house and talked with my sons, John minus 12 years old and Tim minus 10 years old. I explained to them that I would not be living with them for a while. John wanted to know why. Tim just started crying. I told them that these things happen, and we all have to learn to deal with them. I calmed them down and left. On Friday, I returned home again and decided not to enter again without calling. I rang the doorbell. The wife opened. "Oh, so this is how it will be now. I want to see the boys and get the rest of my things." "Without talking to me? Don't you have any feelings for me anymore?" "Elaine, you told me yourself that you were going to take lovers and maybe lose me. I can confirm, you lost me. No one asked my feelings then." She winced. "Okay, I admit, my words were not the most successful. On this, dear Elaine, I disagree. You have made your position clear. Your words reflected your feelings. When I heard them, I understood your feelings and moved out." My comment stopped her. I saw her gathering her thoughts, but something stopped her from continuing. She walked away, reminding Scarlett O'Hara, "I'll think about it tomorrow. Tomorrow is a new day." The words about divorce did not cause any reaction from her. I was just wondering how she would react to the official statement. This weekend was different from a repeat of Groundhog Day, but not by much. I knew I was going to move out of the motel, so I bought a bottle of good whiskey. I thought Blue Label whiskey and the plan would make me happier. They didn't. Of course, I had no plan. Whiskey, depression, and lack of sleep stood in the way of this. People change. Sometimes these changes happen slowly and accumulate over time. But such rapid change does not happen. There had to be something fundamentally wrong with me. These thoughts continued to haunt me. Logic tried to convince me. Logic said there was nothing wrong with me, she was the problem. But emotional arguments have always trumped logic. Anyone who believes that logic can overcome emotions has never been married. Depression is a terrible thing. I was in a dark place. I doubted everything. There was clearly something wrong with me, and since I couldn't figure out what it was, I suspected everything. I didn't want to communicate with clients. I didn't want to help my employees. I was unhappy and wanted to drown in this misery. If there was anything worse than Groundhog Day, it was this state when you are no longer just indifferent, but actually feel pain, and this pain overwhelms you. Wednesday surprised me. I got a call on my cell phone before I left for work. Walt was planning to move out by noon. I called the property staging company and spoke with Sally Wilson. She agreed to meet me at the house at 1 p.m. and let me inside. April 19th. So, here I am standing in my rented house, which will now become my new home. "Isn't this lovely?" Sally said, starting to speak in her rental tone. "Sally, I'm sorry this is rude, but I'm here because I'm divorcing my wife. There's no time for charms here." "Sorry, do you need my help?" "It will be necessary. Let me look around first, and then we'll decide. Sorry for being rude." "I knew there were reasons to be single," she said with a smile. I smiled back. There were no hard feelings between us. The living room was furnished quite modestly. A leather sofa, an armchair and a rocking chair, a 60-inch flat-screen TV on a stand, a couple of tables and lamps. It seemed like Walt had signed up for the Nerd Man cave, the basic version not upgraded to the deluxe with real skin and other upgrades. But for my purposes, it will do just fine. The dining room was functional, and that's about all that can be said about it. The kitchen had been updated before Walt moved in and looked nice. The master bedroom was empty, and the other two rooms looked terrible. I had two of the three basic items, a TV and a microwave. All I needed was a bed. Sally shook her head. "Dawn, most of this furniture is pretty mediocre." "It'll do for now. I only need a new sleeping place for myself and for the two small bedrooms to be cleaned. How quickly can this be done?" "By tomorrow evening. Do you want a nice bedroom?" "Yes, the standard one, like we use for showing nice houses. Modern, without unnecessary frills." She thought for a minute and said, "It will be ready by Friday." Remembering his conversation with Sally, "Because I'm divorcing my wife." To get a divorce, I needed to meet with a lawyer and go through all the steps of the process. I could do this as soon as I left the house. I had a law firm that I worked with selling houses. I'm sure they must have a divorce lawyer or know someone to recommend. I called the law firm as soon as I got into the car. They had a divorce lawyer. I made an appointment for Friday morning. I went back to the motel and told them I was leaving on Friday morning. My new life will require money. I went to bed early, hoping for a good day tomorrow. Friday. I arrived at the place early, received 3 calls, which all turned into new real estate sales requests for the company. I usually leave calls like this for our agents, but today they were all busy. There will be no money today, but when these houses sell, my commission will go to me. The day was off to a good start. I was scheduled to show the house this afternoon. I had planned to transfer it to another agent, but luckily I didn't. Sometimes you get lucky with clients. It often happens that buyers don't know what they want and can't afford what they find. The process is slow and often ends in nothing. My day client was the complete opposite. A woman of about 50 years old. Her husband is the head of a large manufacturing company with offices in a dozen cities. He had just been transferred to our city and didn't have time to look for a home. He asked her to try to keep the budget to $1.5 million. The first house I showed her was my own property listed for $1,750,000. She liked it, said that the house was ideal for them, and offered $1,500,000. The response offer of $1,700,000 arrived 10 minutes later. She called her husband, and he said, "Offer them $1,650,000 or no deal. Tell us we'll pay in cash." The deal was completed. My bid, my sale, 7%, $115,500 in my pocket. Not bad for about 4 hours of work. I may have had better days during my time in real estate, but I don't remember them. I texted Elaine, "How about I take the boys for the weekend? I'll pick them up from school and return them around 6 p.m. on Sunday." 5 minutes later, I received an answer. "Of course, I will pack a suitcase for them. You can pick it up any time on Friday." It was unexpected. No trade, no, we need to talk. She didn't even know I had a house now. What happened to her? What is she thinking about? I knew the house was empty, so after work I went to the store to get supplies. Women go grocery shopping and men get supplies: frozen breakfasts, frozen dinners, hot dogs, buns, white bread, peanut butter, grape jelly, popcorn, lemonade, chips, mixed nuts, whiskey, and beer. I was ready for Friday. Friday. While I was at work, doubts began to plague me. I tried to stay busy so that doubt wouldn't take hold of me, but it was a losing battle. What could be so wrong with me that she would cast me aside so easily? When I returned home, my thoughts changed. I no longer thought about the loss. I focused on what I needed to do next: building a relationship with my sons and learning how to pick the winning lottery number. The 2 bedrooms were cleaned and ready. The 3 of us will camp in my bedroom. I will offer the boys a choice: 2 separate rooms or 1 shared bedroom and a playroom. My new home was much smaller than theirs, and my mother's. I wanted to do everything I could to make it special for them. The lottery was a completely different story. There were actually 3 drawings in this lottery: the blue lottery, the gold lottery, and the combination lottery. The main jackpot was in a combination lottery. People could buy tickets for the blue lottery, where the numbers ranged from 1 to 30. 6 numbers were drawn on Friday nights. The gold lottery followed the same principle and was drawn on Saturday. A combination lottery was held immediately after these drawings. Its uniqueness lay in the following. The combination ticket contained 2 sets of numbers from 1 to 30, one for the gold lottery and one for the blue lottery. The drawing included 12 winning numbers on Friday and Saturday. From these 12 numbers, 6 gold and 6 blue, 6 numbers were drawn again to determine the winner of the combination lottery. Who would come up with such a strange system? Friday has arrived. I went to, perhaps, as I now called Elaine in my thoughts, home and found a suitcase with the boys' things. I met with my divorce lawyer, and I liked her. The papers will be ready next week. I was waiting in the car outside the boys' school with other parents. They went out together, and as if they had a beacon in my car, they instantly found me among dozens of cars. "Hi, Dad. The coolest thing happened today on." Simultaneously with the second son, "Dad, guess what? Betty took my." Stop, one at a time. I have a surprise for you both, too, I said, knowing that the word surprise has a magical effect for teenagers. Suddenly, we went from 3 speakers to 1 listener. Today, we will be camping in my bedroom. We will plan together how to divide the 2 rooms in my new house. You can choose separate rooms or split 2 rooms between each other. John, the eldest, immediately wanted his own room. Tim, the youngest, was very smart for his age. He usually wanted what his brother didn't want and was already devising ways to get his way since physical strength was not an option. That sounds good. Dad, what makes you think we'll want to separate the 2 rooms? We could make one for bedtime and maybe for homework and one for games and fun. Can we get our own TV? John asked, already interested in the new idea. Sure, we'll just have to figure out how to split it, or maybe get 2 smaller ones. I didn't need to be a genius to figure out where this was going. That would be so great. Let's do this. John was sold. Tim simply smiled, suitable for me. A cunning man, at 10 years old, he already knew how to trick his elder around his finger. I made a mental note. Should I help him develop this skill or, conversely, defend against his attempts to use it on me? The weekend was a complete success in every way except the lottery. I didn't watch the combination lottery drawing on Saturday. I don't believe people should buy lottery tickets, and I wasn't going to teach my sons that the lottery was important. On Sunday, I learned from the newspaper that, as expected, none of the 6 numbers I had chosen had won. April 24th. I had a great night's sleep on Sunday night. I got dressed and was full of enthusiasm to start the new week. I came to work. Although business was going great, I still felt empty inside. Everything kept coming back to that word, maybe. Our marriage ended, and she never called me. Being successful in business is one thing, but inside I still felt like a failure. How could I be someone else? The day was slow until I got home. If I'm going to get rid of this darkness, it's time to find someone to talk to. This is a strange euphemism because the last thing I wanted was communication. I was simply overwhelmed by desire and was looking for release. It's rude to say that you just want sex, so let there be communication. Wednesday after work, I went to a Thames bar and restaurant in the city center. I looked around, trying to understand why it was called that way. After about 30 seconds, I decided I wasn't interested. I sat down at the bar counter. A very pretty woman of about 30 was sitting next to me. We briefly met eyes. I smiled and said, "Hi." She immediately looked away and looked at my left hand. I don't talk to married men. My wedding ring was taken off, but there was a mark on my finger. I'm in the process of divorcing my unfaithful wife, I said with righteous indignation. Oh, this is so original. She looked around the hall. You see those 2 sitting at that table? Yes, are they waiting for someone? She laughed. I don't know, both are married, but they will tell you that they are in the process of getting a divorce. That guy behind them will say that his wife doesn't understand him. I personally don't understand why he thinks a single woman should care about his wife's cognitive abilities. She smiled, clearly confident that she had taught me a lesson, and turned away. I was shocked, not because of her knowledge of the room, but because my first attempt to meet a woman ended with the word hello. The only thing that pleased me was that it didn't hurt me too much. I lightly touched her shoulder. She turned around irritably. I smiled without losing confidence. If you don't mind, we got here a little earlier than everyone else. Can I ask you a question? Are you really such a slow learner? Her face expressed hostility. Her words made me laugh. No, our moment is over. I'm just wondering, since you're a good observer, who comes here? What are they looking for? It hurt her. Same as last week, I guess. She answered not as a question, but rather to force me to continue. I was married for 14 years, and now I've only been free for a few weeks. This is my first time at Thames. I chose it because I heard that the people here are friendly. She considered my remark. Sometimes we are like that. Well, some of us. Thames is a place for singles. I don't see people here looking for a new partner or even a first spouse. We just come in after work to chat, have fun, and sometimes go home with someone if we want. Funny? My tone made it clear that this didn't sound like much fun to me. Sorry, I didn't want to evaluate. Her posture straightened, her face became more serious. You are not a typical visitor here. Thames is not my life. It's just a place I go to on Wednesdays after work. Those who want to relieve some stress after work gather here at least on Wednesdays. It seems you're right. She laughed, melodiously. I know I'm right. What exactly? It's a little early in my single life to be looking for any hidden meanings that may be revealed in Thames. We laughed. I offered to buy her a drink for her efforts. We chatted about living alone. After a while, I got up. The place was filled with people. We smiled at each other and said goodbye. I didn't ask her name, and she didn't recognize mine. It was only 40 minutes, but I learned a lot about how to get back to life. I discovered a spark within me, a feeling worth holding on to. I told myself I wasn't looking for connection, but I didn't really believe it. In those few minutes, I realized, be shallow, be persistent, and never go alone. Less than a week after Elaine received her divorce papers, my lawyer received her response. It was very short, asserting her interests and offering to negotiate a settlement in 2 weeks. There was still no communication between us. I didn't even know what to feel about this. It seemed like I didn't care, but there must have been some emotions hidden somewhere inside that I didn't tell myself about. If there were any, they were well hidden. How could this be? I don't know what other people call places like Thames. I call them meat markets. In fact, I even thought that a good name for a bar would be Meat Market, a play on words, meat, meat, and meat, meat, but I suspect that this name would appeal more to the heated men than the general public. Meat markets are extremely efficient and productive. Some come here to find a partner or life partner. Many come here for foreplay. These latter can recognize each other at a distance of 50 paces. I found that I could go to these places 5 times a week Sunday, and, strangely, Thursday are bad days, and be guaranteed to find someone for one night. Disposable partners do not create problems. Oh, that means yes. That means no. Thank you, and see you if you want. My relationship with my sons has also become great. Their rooms were put together perfectly. The game room was 10 by 12 feet, with two 43-inch televisions mounted in the corners on either side of the door. They also had laptops, tablets, phones, and controllers to control anything that wasn't a nuclear submarine. John was sitting in an office chair with a tray propped up on the arms. Tim found himself a beanbag chair and lounged in poses only accessible to the young. They both wore headphones and enjoyed every minute they were allowed to spend in this room. My only complaint: the time and money I spent on the lottery. It was confusing. It didn't make any sense, but there were 2 winners in a row in the house. I've read a lot about this. These 3 drawings made the lottery unique. People wrote how to win, but what I read said that they didn't understand it either. 2 weeks passed unnoticed. I went to the settlement meeting not knowing what to expect. The meeting took place in her lawyer's office, and he sat us down, offered us water and coffee, and stated that Elaine preferred that he do the talking. I looked at her as I entered the room, and we both smiled politely at each other. When her lawyer said he would speak for her, I looked at her again, and she simply nodded, confirming his words. It looks like she's going to play her role to the end. I nodded in response, confirming that this suited us. Her lawyer asked for primary custody with extensive visitation rights and a split of assets, alimony and child support according to the standard formula. Since she didn't ask for anything more than that, they assumed we would agree and the process would end without pain. My lawyer asked about our house. The answer was something unintelligible about how Elaine and the children would live there and I would pay for it. Elaine suddenly changed. She became aggressive. This was the first emotion I saw from her all this time. Surprisingly, by that time my depression had already passed. I didn't care that she became aggressive. Her problems were her problems. My lawyer quickly got the conversation on track, and we reached an agreement. The weeks flew by one after another. The number of my victories in bed grew rapidly. I had to change my lifestyle. Have you read those stories where a man can do 3-4 times a night, every night, and increase the frequency on the weekends? I'd like to meet a guy like that. I did less than half of what these stories describe, and I was almost exhausted after a couple of months. Even if the body is able to continue having sex, it still needs things like sleep, food, and hydration. I think there are worse ways to die, but I'd like to at least wait until my boys finish school. June 13th. Life was good. No, even better than good. Well, except for the lottery. Who knows? Maybe next week I'll get lucky. Tomorrow is an important day. This is the final hearing in my divorce. Since everything was agreed upon, I didn't have to attend, but I was going to come anyway. I arrived at the court at 9:55 and was surprised to see Elaine at the door. "I'm sorry it ended this way, Dawn," she said without the slightest regret. "Me too," I said, knowing I sounded no more sincere than she did. We entered the courtroom together and took our seats. Both lawyers appeared at the same time from where I don't know. The judge walked in, said a few words, banged his gavel, and announced that the divorce would take effect in 90 days. I turned to my lawyer and shook her hand. I looked over her shoulder and saw that Elaine had already left. That's it. It's over. What an amazing transformation. A happy marriage, then a mostly dysfunctional, depressed husband, and now a happily single guy wondering if he's tired of all the sex. I should have felt regret, but I couldn't find it. 10 weeks, and there was nothing left of 14 years of marriage. Nothing, including any emotion from Elaine or me. It was a wonderful day. When I went outside, I thought, should I go to the office or just enjoy this day? Surprisingly, I decided that I wanted to return home and rethink my overly sexual lifestyle. There must be a limit, and in my humble opinion, I have reached it. Sitting in my leather chair, I began to think about the upcoming changes. Now, with shared custody, I had to spend more time at home. It's funny, the house always seemed like just a house, but now it has become a home in the real sense. Homes are better when there are two parents. This should be my new priority. I chuckled to myself. When I was very young, I thought that as soon as I got married, I could have sex as much as I wanted, and now, when I want to get married again, it's so as not to kill myself with sex. What should I do? How to approach this? I didn't have to think long. Stop being superficial. It's time to be yourself. There is no time to waste. Tomorrow after work, I will go there again. June 14th. I came to the Thames again. I was unsure whether to go here, but decided that in a singles bar, it would be easier to recognize those who were looking for a real partner. In the same place where I met that mysterious woman for the first time sat a pretty red-haired girl. I immediately realized that she was not one of those who came for fun. She looked like she was very uncomfortable here. I came over and sat down next to him. She continued to look straight ahead. I cleared my throat and said, "Excuse me." She turned her head, but did not smile. Her eyes darted around as if she was looking for a way out. "Sorry if I may say so, you look like you don't want to be here." She sighed heavily, perhaps trying to laugh. "Is it that noticeable?" "It would probably be rude of me to say so. But what about going to the coffee shop across the street? At least it's quiet there." "I don't even know you." I smiled, took a business card out of my pocket, and handed it to her. "Don Wilson of Responsive Realty. Now you know me. Is that enough to cross the street?" Her eyes widened. "Oh my God. We bought a house from you, well, from Donna Townsend." "Donna is one of the best." "We?" I asked, leaving the question open. "My husband. That is, my ex-husband and me. It is now a former home. He went to me after the divorce." "What's your name?" "Grace Baldwin. There used to be Mrs. Jack Wyndham when we worked with Donna." "Well, Grace, it looks like you don't want to be here. We have something in common. Shall we cross the road? I think it's worth the risk." She agreed. I told her my story, and it relaxed her a little. I think it was easier for her to share because our situation was similar. She sighed. "Jack and I were married for 6 years, divorced almost 2 years ago. We planned to have our first child by the time I was 30, and now I'm 32. The timing was never right for him. One day, he said that he wanted to get a divorce because he fell in love with another woman. It turned out that it was his secretary, and she was pregnant. I'm surprised you're still single. To tell you the truth, I was asked out on dates, but I only went twice. I was in love with Jack, and he left me for, well, let's say for much less, so to speak. This shocked me greatly. There must be something wrong with me. I smiled, like when your wife says she plans to take lovers and maybe lose you. This caused the first smile I saw from her all evening. I swore to myself that I would do everything possible to see her more often. Then she thought for a moment and said, "You really understand how I feel. How long did it take you to get over it?" This is amazing. I was just thinking about this today. I was in a complete slump for a couple of weeks, and then, amazingly, things started to change. The first night of this change was right here, well, there at Thames, I said, pointing to the bar across the street. This sparked a lively conversation, she admitted. My friends always tell me that I need to go out, but I hardly go anywhere, and today, when I drove past Thames, I suddenly felt that I needed to go there. But as soon as I walked in, I immediately wondered why I did it at all. I had a hard time not making a comment like, "Well, with the way you were restrained, that's not surprising." Instead, I said, "The reason is my luck. I've had a lot of luck lately." "Is my decision to go to Thames part of your luck?" She smiled, half seriously, half jokingly. "You are here, and this is my luck. Are you saying that this is not true?" I answered with a smile. We talked, joked, and generally enjoyed each other's company. I looked at my watch. It was already about 7:30 p.m. "Why don't we have dinner?" "Oh, that would be wonderful. I'm dying of hunger. I just didn't think about it before." There were 3 good restaurants nearby within walking distance. I called 2 of them. The first one was full, and the second one could take us right away. 5 minutes after the call, we were already there. "Are you working?" I asked, suddenly realizing that I was doing most of the talking, and I wanted to know more about her. I was a sociable person and knew how to put others at ease, and Grace just needed to be relaxed. "Yes, I am the leader of a group of researchers studying drugs that help people fight the effects of aging." "What is your education?" "I have degrees in biochemistry and gerontology." "Wow, you look—" "Stop, stop. I'm just an ordinary girl," she said with some force, and then added softly, "One of the demons that constantly haunts me says that Jack went to see his secretary because I was too smart." I, of course, touched a nerve with her. "I'm sorry," I said, sincerely. "I just wanted to say that you are an impressive person, and I like it. And these demons, yes, I know them." I paused before adding, "People are different, you know. I am curious and love to learn new things. I don't consider myself the smartest person in the room. I'm someone who likes to get to know people and help them. That's why I'm in sales, and if I may be a modist, I'm damn good at it." This revived our conversation again. I asked her questions about how she came to such a difficult task. I was genuinely interested in her answers. The more curious I became, the more she wanted to talk about herself. I've never met anyone like her. We looked at each other. Our conversation was animated. We had fun getting to know each other. I watched her literally blossom and clearly enjoyed this interaction, especially since it had been a long time since I felt so free to express my thoughts. "Excuse me, sir," came the waiter's voice. I looked up. "We close at 11 o'clock. I looked around. There was no one else in the restaurant. I looked at my watch, 11:33. "Oh, sorry." I took $20 out of my pocket and handed it to the waiter. We clearly lost track of time. Friday was Blue Lotto draw day. Nothing. The lottery was confusing. I played with my son's and I's birthday numbers in both colors. This meant that I had to match 3 numbers in the Friday drawing and 3 again in the Saturday drawing. And then, the 6 winning numbers from Friday and Saturday were placed on the reel, and 6 numbers were drawn as the final winner. Even if you had all 6 numbers in the reel, your chances of winning were 1 in 1,000. But blind faith pushes you to do stupid things. Maybe aliens exist. Maybe they're watching me. Maybe. And then Saturday came. I was going on a date. I began to look for a partner with whom I could share my life. So different from the last few evenings. I took Grace. She looked different. What? She was curious. You look somehow different, and I can't say why. Just like you. I didn't dress up to please you. I dressed up for someone who likes me and who likes me. Her answer made me smile. I thought about it, and she said, "Hello? Where have you gone?" I spent 20 minutes choosing clothes because I couldn't decide what to wear. I couldn't decide because I couldn't understand what you just said without even thinking about it. She laughed out loud. And I spent 90 minutes choosing, so stop complaining. It was a wonderful evening. When I dated Lainey, I was young and didn't know much. I tried to choose the perfect woman for myself without knowing myself. And I didn't have a clear idea of who the ideal woman was. Grace and I talked easily, and in a few hours, we learned more about each other than I knew about most people. Grace, it was a wonderful evening. Can we repeat it on, say, Monday? Oh, that would be great, but Monday doesn't suit me. How about another day? On Tuesday? Wonderful. I took her home, received a goodbye kiss with a big promise, and headed back home. I've never met anyone like her. So much intelligence, and at the same time so down to earth and witty. I thought, this can't be right. There's no way someone could find a life partner that quickly, right? I had to laugh at myself. I have found no one but a woman with whom I would like to get to know each other better. June 30th. Grace and I met 4 times in 9 days. The 4th time we agreed that I would stay the night with her in her condominium. We were both eager to make love and had strange discussions about how and when. Everything was very scientific. But unfortunately, the organs below the waist are not very scientific. We barely made it through dinner before we ended up at her house, tearing each other's clothes off. It was wonderful. Somewhere in the middle of the night, we swore loyalty to each other. Both stated that this was especially important to us because our previous partners had betrayed us, and it was even more important now. During the conversation, I laughed. What makes you laugh, Dawn? I know you well enough to know that you don't take what we're saying lightly. So what's so funny? Grace, about a week ago, we didn't know each other. You were so timid that you didn't even want to dip your toe in the water, and I tried to regain my confidence through casual relationships. Now we know each other very well. I would venture to say that I know you better than I ever knew Elaine. This is beyond ironic. What made me laugh made her worry. Dawn, I want to talk for a minute. Bring us some wine, please. It's a weird time to talk, but if she wants to talk, I'm ready. I took 2 glasses of her favorite red wine, and she was already in bed, in a robe, ready to talk. Thank you. I appreciate it. I understand your irony, but it hit me in a different way. Every day at work I experiment, trying to find a combination of chemicals to get the effect I want. It never turns out perfect the first time. How come we got it perfect on the first try? Could it be? I thought about it, but not seriously. How can you take aliens seriously? Grace, I'm sorry, it sounds strange, but it's the truth, and I have to tell you. I told her the story of tenants who won the lottery, claims that they were helped by aliens, then the denial of this, and how I felt when I returned home. I went on to describe how my next steps were towards casual relationships. Maybe it's easier now than before, but no one is as lucky as me. And then I decided that I wanted to find a life partner, and I found her at the very place where I was beginning to regain my confidence. How is this possible? Now she was smiling. What a wonderful story. I frowned and said, well, not so great. I bought a bunch of lottery tickets and didn't win. She frowned mockingly. You could be a little more romantic. It dawned on me. I didn't understand right away. I've already won the lottery. Against incredible odds, I drew the only winning ticket. She took off her robe. I saw that that was all she was wearing. It's better. Go pick up your prize. It will be paid in installments. Again, it was wonderful. As we fell asleep, I muttered, I'll save a lot of money by not buying those stupid lottery tickets. She purred contentedly, and we fell asleep. This topic has been raised from time to time. How could it be otherwise? Our beliefs were similar. It was too random to ignore and could not be anything other than a coincidence. We loved Star Wars as much as anyone, but it didn't make sense to seriously discuss the Skywalkers using the Force for our sake. The next weekend was the 4th of July, and Grace and I were trying to decide how she should meet my boys. We both agreed that since my divorce wasn't finalized, it had to be over before they went to bed. We decided to spend the day at home with a barbecue and so on. Planning a family event with a scientist is not the same as planning with a house salesman. She worried about details that I had no idea about, but we took into account each other's needs, and her introduction to the boys was ready. July 4th. Grace knocked on the door and John answered. Tim and I were close. Hello, my name is Grace. You must be John. He extended his hand for a handshake and said politely, Nice to meet you. Just like we had rehearsed, but he did a great job. Tim said hello too, and we all sat down in the living room. Boys, I wanted you to have the opportunity to get to know Grace and for her to get to know you. We talked about it yesterday, but the first thing we want to do is just chat and get to know each other a little. Are you going to take my mom's place? Tim asked, his tone at least curious rather than threatening. Grace stood up, walked over to Tim, and knelt down to be eye level with him. No, Tim, I'm not going to. But this is the most important question you could ask. Your mom is your mom, and no one can replace her. But I think you're worried about what's going on with your dad and me. Am I right? Tim simply nodded. Well, we don't know right now. We'll just get to know each other, and maybe in a few months we'll be able to say that we'll be a couple for the long haul, or maybe not. But for now, we're just figuring out who we are. Are you going to live here? Asked John. He was sitting almost behind her on the sofa next to me. She turned and said, No, definitely not. I have my own condominium, and I sleep there every night. Does Dad sleep there with you? John, this is a bit of a personal question. I think you feel some kind of threat from Grace, right? Well, yes, I want you and Mom to be together again. I want everything to be as before. Grace remained where she was, but it was obvious that this question was intended for me. John, I'm so sorry you have to deal with this at such a young age. I turned to Tim, and you, especially at an even younger age. Sometimes marriages fail and cannot be repaired. I'm sorry this happened, but it's true. Your mom and I had great years together. We have 2 wonderful sons that we both adore, but we will no longer be together as a family. Everyone was silent. Grace decided to break the silence. John, we your dad and I wanted to get together as a foursome early on in our relationship. I've only known your dad for 16 days. We really like each other. But if our relationship is to develop, it is important that you and your brother get to know me and hopefully love me. John narrowed his eyes, and this alarmed me a little. He was appraising her, it seemed. Squinting, he suddenly smiled. I like it. I see that you are being honest. You want me to love you. Grace must be tired of kneeling. She was wearing shorts and sandals, and I'm sure the carpet was starting to make her uncomfortable. She sat on her hip, folding her legs under her, and continued to look into John's eyes. You made me very happy, John. I want you to recognize me. She turned and looked at Tim. And the same goes for you, Tim. I looked at my watch exaggeratedly. Wow, it's already noon. How about we grill some burgers and corn? At this point, the official introductions ended, and we continued the day. It was a strange love, I think. Strange in the sense that we both understood how quickly we had found a spark after being hurt so badly. Both of us wanted to avoid more pain than we wanted to find romance. We often joked about being brought together by Martians, and that made everything okay. We laughed, but it was like buying lottery tickets. I didn't believe it, but why not just in case? Dawn, this is strange. We joke that some alien forces brought us together. This seems funny. But when I start to doubt that everything is going too fast, this ridiculous idea comes to mind and brings me peace. It's the same for me. What amuses me the most is that I actually stopped buying lottery tickets because I think we are my prize." This brought a warm smile to her face, but she knew I wasn't trying to charm her. I was telling the truth. We both didn't believe it, but September 9th. Time passed as usual, as it usually does. We were a real couple, and none of us doubted it. We started talking about getting married even before I proposed to her. During the first such conversation, I told her that I had to propose to her and that she would soon receive one. I surprised her the next time we were together. She really liked the ring, and we agreed that she would not wear it until September 16th, when my divorce became final. We spent more and more time together. We often included my sons in our plans. His relationship with Grace also grew stronger. Surprisingly, Elaine either didn't notice or didn't care. She met Grace a couple of times when we were picking up or returning the children to our former home, and she was friendly, as if she were meeting some stranger at the store. And then, "Hey, Tim, what happened? Mom is dead." He almost screamed. "What? Wait, what happened?" "She lies at the bottom of the stairs. White foam around the mouth. She just lies there." "Tim, touch her face. Is it warm?" "Yes, it's hot." "Okay, she just lost consciousness. I'll call for help now. You stay by the phone and wait for the call, okay?" We hung up and I ran to the car, dialing 911 as I went. I described what I knew and asked him to call Tim and tell him if anything needed to be done. I warned him that he was only 10 years old, but he was holding his own. By the time I was done with the emergency call, I was already racing towards Elaine's house too fast. It's amazing that I got there at all. What was even more surprising was that I arrived just a few minutes after the ambulance. The front door was open and two paramedics were wheeling a stretcher into the house. I walked in and another medic was kneeling next to Elaine, calling out her name. There were medical supplies around. It looks like he gave her an injection and was preparing to resuscitate her. "Tim, where are you, buddy?" "I asked him to wait in that room," the medic said, pointing to the living room door. At the same time, Tim ran out to me. I picked him up and hugged him like a little child. "Everything is fine now." I looked at the medic, who was shaking Elaine's hand lightly and kept calling her name. Suddenly, she coughed and tried to open her eyes. I couldn't tell if she succeeded. Other doctors ran up, and the three of them put her on a stretcher, lifted it, and began to take her to the ambulance. "Which hospital?" I asked. "To the district." I think she'll pull through." With these words, they got into the car and drove away. Elaine. It was so much fun. Well, for a while. My life was crap. I didn't like being a mother. I didn't like the job I found instead. I was bored with my husband. My friends were happy in their miserable lives. But I needed something different. The Wilder group at work has started hen parties on Wednesdays. What a pointless exercise it was. Drinking and dancing with the same losers we were supposed to be running away from. One night, I wandered away from the bar we were at and came across a group of 5 guys and 2 girls huddled at the entrance to the alley next to the bar. They looked at me with outright paranoia. I laughed and said that they were as boring as the people inside. One of them, Henry Martin, showed interest in me. He separated from the group and we started talking. He offered me a green pill, although it would be more correct to say capsule. I asked what it was. He laughed and said I was as boring as the people inside. I took the capsule. I have no idea what was in it, but the boredom is a thing of the past. Henry was careful. He didn't give me any more pills or let me really hang out. He drove me home on time and promised to meet me for lunch the next day. He gave me another capsule. I don't know what it was, but my mood improved and I was on my way. On the way to where? Maybe I asked myself this. Unfortunately, I didn't try to find the answer. Slowly but surely, he got me hooked on some kind of substance, and soon I was providing him with sexual favors in exchange for pills. Each situation has its pros and cons. My problem was that my idea of what was good and what was bad was distorted. I was looking for a thrill, something new, dark, and adventurous. Henry didn't need to process me much. I myself strove for the evil that he proposed. Henry was delighted. It allowed me to stay in my monotonous life and have enough fun to make it bearable. Well, until our nosy neighbor across the street suspected something was wrong and told Don about it. That's when I was caught. Well, not really. Don thought I was just cheating on him. Oh, if only he knew. Where am I? You're at the county hospital, Miss Wilson. We almost lost you. I understand that your son found you unconscious and called 911. Oh no, where are the boys now? Oh wait, what day is it today? It's Tuesday night, Neem. You have been here since Saturday afternoon. Tuesday the 12th? Today my divorce is finalized. I wonder if this was the reason. The nurse looked at me. Miss Wilson, what were you doing on Saturday the 9th? Wow, I don't have the slightest idea. I don't remember anything after the bachelorette party on Wednesday. Nurse, I'm ashamed to say this, but I don't remember what happened on Saturday and on Thursday or Friday too. I stared straight ahead. I don't know if she expected further conversation from me, but I tried to recall the missed days in my memory. She left where the nurses were leaving, and a few minutes later another woman came in. Miss Wilson, my name is Dr. Adams. I am the attending physician for your case. How are you feeling? Confused. I woke up, and the last day I remember was Wednesday. I found out that I was brought here on Saturday. I can't remember the time from when I finished work on Wednesday until now. Temporary memory loss is not such a rare occurrence. It is usually associated with trauma. In your case, I suspect it is what we call psychogenic amnesia caused by emotional trauma, so we need to find out what you did to bring you here. I thought about it for about 5 or 6 milliseconds. She doesn't need to know about it. I knew the boys stayed with Dawn last week. I became increasingly uncomfortable being alone. Wednesday was my evening with Henry. The fact that I can't remember anything tells you how far I've fallen, not whether there was any other reason for it. My divorce is officially finalized today. I was very afraid of this. I must have gone too far. I'm glad I'm back. However, it feels like ants are crawling all over my body. Overdoing it is putting it mildly, Miss Wilson. A large number of different substances were found in your body. You are currently going through withdrawal symptoms. We give you medications to relieve it. When can I leave here? I have 2 little boys at home. I asked the nurse to contact Mr. Don Wilson. As far as I understand, he is your ex-husband. The boys spent the last few days with him. You are showing all the signs of a serious addiction. I recommend that you spend some time in rehab before returning home. Will he come to take care of me? As soon as I said these words, my eyes filled with tears. How can he care about me after everything I've done? Try to calm down. Mr. Wilson will arrive soon. How soon? I probably look terrible. Don't worry about how you look. You have more important things to do right now. You have important decisions to make about your recovery. She looked at me sternly and left the room. Solutions? What solutions? But most importantly, I need to get myself in order. My darling is coming to help me, and I need to look my best. I pressed the call button and started pressing it, as if the force of pressing depended on how quickly the nurse would come. My finger had already started to tremble when she arrived. Nurse, I need a comb and a mirror. My love will come. The nurse looked worried, as if she was about to object to me, but after a short pause, she said, "Let's see what I can find. I just spoke to Mr. Wilson. He'll be here in half an hour." The mirror scared me. If I had not held it in front of my face, I would have asked who this pale, sick person was. I only had a few minutes, so I did the best I could. I'll apologize when he arrives. "Oh, Dawn, you look so good. It's just terrible. I can't believe that after everything I've done, you still care about me." "Wait, Elaine, calm down." "Why not Laney? You always called me Laney." "Please calm down. It may not be exactly what you expect. Our divorce was finalized today. Do you remember that?" "Well, of course. But you're still here." "Elaine, I'm here because our 10-year-old son called me in a panic, saying, 'Mom's dead.'" I looked at him. There was no warmth in his gaze, no concern, just a good man standing at the bedside of some woman with an addiction, trying to figure out what to do next. "Oh, I know the disappointment showed on my face. I'm so sorry. What did I do? I started crying again. A brief image of Henry shouting at me flashed and disappeared. Don started to say something, but I raised my hand, and he fell silent. Don, let me collect my thoughts a little. Tell me what I can do or what you are going to do. Now is not the time to feel sorry for yourself. Thank God, he smiled widely. Elaine, I haven't heard anything meaningful from you for a long time. I hope this means you are on the road to recovery. This is exactly what I came to talk to you about. It's time for me to stop feeling sorry for myself, come home and start being the wife and mother. Oh, that's not true. Start being the mother I should be. Elaine, I left the boys at your house on Saturday at noon, as we agreed. 4 hours later, our 10-year-old son called to say you were dead. Now you're in the hospital, and they say you had a lot of illegal substances in your system. It's time to come to your senses. This made me angry. This son of a bitch was so boring that I had to look for entertainment on the side. I could handle it. Who is he to tell me that I need to get my act together? Well, Don, maybe you're right. I think it's my decision. He shook his head. That's the thing. I understand that you don't have family nearby to help you. I am not sure that you are able to make decisions on your own, and I am not ready to make them for you. I can't risk it. Tears were close again. Suddenly, I lost confidence. He's right, I need help. My thoughts were racing. No, these were not thoughts, these were emotions. Crap, I need to pull myself together. What decisions need to be made? On Monday morning, I called your employer and said that you were in the hospital. I also said that I am your ex-husband and was not informed why you were hospitalized, but I will immediately tell you that you need to contact them. The hospital says you need time in rehab to overcome your addiction. Oh, by the way, I gave them an official statement that I will not disclose your medical information to anyone. They were able to tell me everything since I am still listed as your next of kin. And finally, we need a temporary agreement regarding custody of the boys. It sounds quite simple, although in fact I didn't see anything simple about it. I was confused and couldn't collect my thoughts. Elaine, you've been in, well, let's just say, not in the best condition for some time now. Are you sure you can make your own decisions? Maybe your lawyer should make the decision for you. You are right. It's probably best that he agrees with what I'm about to do. But Don, for now, the boys will stay with you. I know you will take care of them. I don't know how long my recovery will take, but can you promise me that you won't make any final decisions before I get back? Elaine, I don't want to receive any more calls like the one I received from Tim. He's still in shock. I hope you're on the right track now, and we can both give the boys the attention they need. This is what I promise you. When I am sure that you have recovered, together we will come to a common agreement about the boys. That sounds fair. You are a good person, and I am so sorry that it was my fault that everything went this far. Will you tell the boys that I'm on the mend, and I'll talk to them soon? Certainly. Should my lawyer contact you or your lawyer tomorrow morning? I tried to show that I wanted his help, not new legal problems. Oh, let him start with me. I want your lawyer to know that we will try to resolve this as peacefully as possible. Thank you, Don. It means a lot to me. I still love you, you know. His face contorted slightly as if he was choking. Take care of yourself. I'm sure we'll be in touch again. He turned around and left. I decided to try to sleep. I woke up many times. People were constantly coming in and out of the room taking tests, asking if I was sleeping, giving me medications. Hospitals are the worst place for a sick person. But the morning came anyway. I'll be fine at work. Henry once told me to sleep with my boss. This would compromise him and give me grounds for legal action if they tried to fire me. I called and the boss said I could take as much time as I needed. He transferred my call to HR and they told me that our health insurance covers addiction rehab. They also said I had up to 42 days of pay, including the days I had already missed while I was in the hospital. After this, we will discuss whether payment will continue. I was able to reach my lawyer by 8:55. I knew he didn't come too early and didn't make appointments until he'd had at least a couple cups of coffee. We chatted, and he said short-term child custody wouldn't be a problem. In the long run, Don may have grievances, and we will resolve them when the need arises. I asked the doctor which rehabilitation center he would recommend, called them, and arranged for hospitalization in 3 days. I tried to remember last week. I completely lost control of myself. 6 months ago, I was a slightly disgruntled wife and mother, too spoiled to think about what I needed to do to fix my life. And so I found a guy who helped me fall to the bottom as a temporary solution. No doubt I had other, more reasonable options, but it's too late for that. September 16th. I went to a rehabilitation center. Wow, there are 2 large rooms with sofas and TVs. These rooms are separated by a dining room. Several conference rooms and 14 bedrooms are located along one of 2 corridors. 12 rooms are double rooms, and the corner rooms are triple rooms. This is where I, with 29 new best friends, will be for the next 28 days. I think the center was quite well organized, but the first thing I realized was that I needed to get better. Otherwise, I would have to come back here a second time. Once will be more than enough. The first major event of the first day was group therapy. 12 women complained about how something small in their lives led to addiction, and now they regret it. People were asked if they wanted to speak, and everyone took turns speaking. Suddenly, I felt that I also needed to say something. My name is Elaine. Hi, Elaine, they answered in unison. I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I listened to your stories. At first it sounded like blah, blah, blah. Life is hard and it's unfair. I am the victim. I looked around the room, no one showed sympathy. And then it dawned on me. I didn't listen to you. I heard my own voice in your stories. I had a good life, but I decided that it wasn't, and I ruined it. How could I be so stupid? I looked around the room again. The judging glances disappeared, but most nodded, as if to say, she's new, she'll understand everything soon. And I really began to understand. This place is hell. I'm itching myself to death. They keep saying that the withdrawal symptoms will pass soon, and I understood why. It won't last long because I can't stand it myself for long. If I survive and get out of here, the first thing I'll do is find Henry and shove a dozen of his pills up his ass. I've been here for over a week now. What's happening? I should be on the road to recovery. One of the orderlies approached me. Ma'am, can you go to the office? Your lawyer is on the line. These conversations were always difficult. I needed to create the impression that everything was fine on the outside, but in reality it was not. I needed to convey intelligent thoughts, although inside I did not feel intelligent. This is Elaine. Elaine, I think I have good news. Your ex-husband wants to minimize the impact on the children. He invites you and him to switch houses for a while. He is willing to either set an end date or leave it open with a condition that when you are able to take primary custody of the boys again, you will switch back. It was hard for me not to jump for joy. I didn't want to take care of these little brats, but it sounded reasonable. Oh, I don't know. I really want to be a mother again. Are you sure this is a good idea? I'm sure. This will show your goodwill. Moreover, I recommend not setting a specific date. This will reassure your ex-husband and build trust. When you are ready to return to your home, I am sure it will be quite reasonable. Wait a minute, I want to think about everything. I wanted to scream with joy, but that would have given me away. It's better to wait a minute and give a balanced answer. Okay, you represent my interests perfectly. I'll do as you say. Great, I'll arrange everything. I need your verbal consent before he starts moving from his house to yours. He said that he will only move the clothes, and all the furniture will remain in place until you move into his house. Then you can ask for any things, and he will transport them. It was a huge victory. Although I found out that I had stayed here no more than a week, it just seemed to me that more time had passed. In fact, only 3 days have passed. How can this be? Just 3 days? It's good that the prisoners, or whatever they call us here, do not have access to telephones. I would have already called Henry and told him what a bastard he is and that his life will end soon. It's depressing. They say you shouldn't be in a romantic relationship for a year. They say we won't return to normal life for several years. We will always be at risk of becoming addicted again. The chances of success are negligible. Everything is against me. Maybe it's better to give up right now. These were the thoughts that occupied me when I had been here for almost 2 weeks. I felt empty inside. The staff here tried to help me understand that my chosen lifestyle was the cause of all my problems. There is probably some truth in this. But I think if I just take a couple of pills and maybe drink a little, it will help clear my mind so I can quit. I just need to hang on long enough to move into a new house, make one call, and get myself organized. Luckily, I asked that my cell phone be charged in my new bedroom. I can make this call right away. September 29th. Today is a sad day. My roommate, Gwen, graduates today. She was wonderful. More than the consultants, she understood what I was going through and helped me. But she bothered me. She had been addicted for almost 10 years and still looked very weak. Her attitude was positive. Maybe she can handle it. Every day at lunch, someone would spend their last meal with us. As is tradition, each graduate spoke a few words about their time here and their hopes for the future. Gwen said that she is hopeful she has a home to return to. She is going to work for her brother, and she is full of confidence. But then she cried, saying that she would miss us all terribly. I haven't had friends for so many years that I can't even remember, she barely managed to say. When she finished, there was no dry eye. I left the cafeteria and went to individual therapy. How do you think things are going with you, Elaine? I have no idea, and it scares the living daylights out of me. Elaine, it's normal. Your physical addiction is almost over, but now you have to develop new habits. And I'm talking specifically about new habits. If you go back to the way you lived before, you will end up in the same trouble again. I could never say this before. I didn't love my life. I didn't love myself. I tried to convince myself that my husband was boring and my children were a complete disappointment. But the problem was me, wasn't it? This is a very deep question, and only you can find the answer to it. Let me say this. Every person lives in an environment that he largely creates himself. Some may see a palace in their surroundings, while others may see a prison. You need to work on seeing the palace. What nonsense. No, not really. You were wealthy and lived like in prison. And there are many people living in poverty who love their lives. Your attitude towards life will determine whether you can recover or not. I looked at her. She's probably right. I would like to try to bring Dawn back, but if I do, I will see my life again as it was. I need to find another way. New habits for a new life. Children are another matter. I miss them. My maternal instincts are still working. This is a big step. I failed them. I put them in danger. The image of Henry suddenly appeared in front of me again. He was going to bring a dozen guys to my house where the kids were. I was preparing for my first such sex, and it didn't upset me because I wasn't myself. And when the effect of the substance wore off, I was overcome by a terrible feeling. I was nothing, and so I ended up at the bottom of the stairs or fell from it, who knows? Tim thought I was dead. He was right, in fact, I was dead. Elaine, a new roommate is moving in with you this afternoon. You will need to try to become to her what Gwen was to you. Oh, I'm not ready for this. Gwen wasn't ready either. It's part of your recovery. Take some responsibility. If she needs help, maybe you can help. If you can't, just ask one of the nurses. You will start to feel better about yourself. October 12th. I heard my name called over the speakerphone. Go to conference room number 3. I wondered what it could be. When I approached the door, one of the consultants said that a visitor was waiting for me. There was a very attractive young woman standing in the room. She extended her hand. Hello, my name is Grace. Grace was my first visitor, although it was almost time for me to check out. I didn't know any Grace. Hi, I'm Lainey, but I think you know that. Do we know each other? No, I'm with your ex-husband. I hope this doesn't upset you. Oddly enough, no, it wasn't upsetting. No, I'm glad that you are happy with him. We are happy. but I want to tell you a story. It may seem incredible, but it is very important to me that you hear it. Well, I can listen to it. This is also part of the recovery process. Everything counts toward my release. I'd offer you a drink, but they keep an eye on everything we take. Please sit down. So what's your story? I think you will find that the house you are about to move into is the most wonderful place you have ever lived in. Damn it, who are these people? I just want to get out of here. I'm constantly hesitating, and now my mind is telling me to make one quick call to Henry for temporary relief. Instead, this woman tells me some nonsense about a dream house. But I have to appear reasonable, otherwise they won't let me out. Oh, and why is he so good? I said with deliberate politeness, without meaning it at all. The last two tenants who lived in this house won the lottery. The second claimed that an alien was looking after the resident of the house. Don't look at me like I'm crazy. I didn't believe it either. But the story continues. Grace, excuse me, I'm afraid I look like I'm not right in the head. And if that's the case, they'll leave me here. I really don't know how to answer you. Elaine, I don't blame you. But Don moved into the house, and he told me that his grief over losing you immediately disappeared. He was able to rebuild his life in a very short time. We talked about this a lot. I'm still not sure how the house affected him, but maybe this will help you decide. Maybe something will help. Hear people say they see little green monkeys. Now someone from the outside saw the little green men. Furthermore, she will also give me Dorothy's shoes from the Wizard of Oz. Once I suggested that you move into this house. Don was furious. He was against you living in the place that helped him so much. It hurt me. Don doesn't want me to get better. She interrupted me. No, he was greatly wounded first by your betrayal, and then by the fact that your youngest son found you dead. Don thinks the house could help him. He was afraid that if you lived there, you would use the house to get him back. I asked him, if the house helped him overcome separation, why will it help you do the opposite? Sorry to be so blunt, but Tim's last call when he thought you were dead was the last straw. You have no chance of reconciliation. It hurts to remember how Tim found me. This makes me reconsider my desire to contact Henry. I wish I could go back to my life before Henry. But new habits, new life. Wanting to go back to where we were will lead to failure. I have to admit, this is the end. If he thinks this house has magical powers, why does he want me to live there? The Don wants your sons to get their mother back. It makes sense. Don wants the boys to have a mother again, and he wants to move on. Why are you here? This is starting to annoy me. I don't understand why I'm like this. I'm always in the clouds. Elaine, this is what I learned from many conversations with Don. He's not sure if the house has any effect, but he believes it might. If you ask me, I will tell you that it was his faith that helped him cope. And you think that if I believe that the house will help me, it will? That's why I'm here. If the magic of this house is that its occupant believes in its help, then I must help you believe. Thanks, if you're interested. My room is free tomorrow afternoon. They can be so helpful. I have to be reasonable, damn. What reasonableness? Elaine, Don decided he wanted to find someone to share his life with on the day of your final divorce hearing. He came out that evening, June 14th, and met me. We were together within a week. I met your sons on the 4th of July. 5 months after he left your life, he proposed to me. We knew each other for 77 days. We laugh that this is impossible. Then we start thinking, maybe this is all home. Then we wonder again, maybe it's because we believe that it's all about the house. Or is it just a coincidence? But what is most important for you is that perhaps the same coincidence will happen to you. She turned around and left. We both smiled. This was the customary thing to do. I don't think either of us felt like smiling. They'll let me go tomorrow. I have problems. I'm willing to work hard for what I want, but what I want changes 3 or 4 times a day. I want everything to be the same as before, and then I remember that I was bored and I did stupid things, and then I remember that being a prostitute was exciting, and then I remember that this brought me here. I didn't want what I had when I had it. I'm afraid I'll repeat this cycle again. The problem is that my mood changes. I really want what I want. I want it bad. And then a change occurs. Maybe it's abstinence. Maybe my mood changes and so do my desires. Even after a complete mood change, I still obsessively want something, but just what I want changes completely. How can I survive? October 13th. It was nice of him to have Dawn provide a car and driver to take me to the house. The driver delivered my bag to the door, used the key he was given to open the door, put the bag inside, handed me the key, and wished me good luck. In my current state, my first instinct was to call Henry. I have to change this thinking. I can't have everything I want. That would result in me not getting anything I want. The house left a pleasant impression. I looked into the kitchen. There were fresh flowers and a note on the table. I read the note. Elaine, welcome home. Your favorite drink, Diet Dr. Pepper, is in the refrigerator. Your car is in the garage, and all your things are in the bedroom. The note was signed by my lawyer's law firm. It's cold, but at least someone thought about me. Who else could have sent me something? My sons are too young, and Henry doesn't do cards. I opened the Dr. Pepper and took a sip straight from the bottle. I decided to look around the house. A bit masculine interior, but good windows, overall not bad. The bedrooms were great. Dawn set up 2 rooms for the boys. I knew they would love being in these rooms. I decided to sit down for a minute and watch TV. I didn't want anything specific, just the fact that I could choose what to watch made me happy. Without housemates and their complex voting system. I threw my legs up, and before I could look back, I woke up. It was already dark. I haven't fallen asleep so unexpectedly for a long time. I walked into the master bedroom and found my things neatly laid out. I found a nightgown, put it on, and went to bed. I fell asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. and felt better than I had in a long time. I went to the kitchen and found capsules for the coffee machine. I looked in the refrigerator and found English muffins and butter. I fried one, ate it, and looked at the clock, 7:04. The boys get up early on Saturdays. Maybe I could say hello to them. Dawn, we exchanged greetings. I'm calling because I want to say hi to the boys. Sure, go into their playroom and turn on the TV on the right. They will contact you via FaceTime. Give me 2 minutes to brush my hair. Thank you very much, and for everything else too. The house is wonderful. 2 minutes, I ended the call. I drank my coffee and thought about what an unusual day it had been. It's amazing what feeling good can do to a person. Perhaps my time at the center actually did me good. Talking to the boys was like a new awakening. Maybe it was crossing the threshold of the house that changed everything. It can't be, right? I was in rehab after all. I'm doing everything right, of course that must be the reason for change. But I remember feeling something when I crossed the threshold. How can it be that entering a house can change one's life so much? My emotions and thoughts were racing. Can't be. I was thinking about talking to the boys. They were cheerful, and so I became like that too. They were so excited and wanted to talk to me. They need me, and I have to pull myself together, not for my sake, for their sake. I'll be back to work on Monday. I wonder if this will become another problem. Dawn moved on. My feelings about this are the strangest. I know that I myself rejected it, and I accept that. But why? He deserves better, but what about me? I have to find other support, or I'll end up with Henry again. I have a huge hole to fill for the boys. They want things to get better, and I have to do everything I can to fix it. Fix it right now. Nothing else matters. I got dressed and started looking for the nearest grocery store. I looked into the closet and shook my head. Nothing worth eating. It was even worse in the freezer. I picked up my phone and started making a shopping list. I wanted the boys to come as soon as possible, and I needed to prepare their favorite dishes. After grocery shopping, I came home and decided I wanted some ice water. I found a large glass and filled it. I sat down in my chair and called Dawn's cell phone. Hi, Elaine, 2 calls in a day. His voice sounded surprised. Sorry. Dawn, I had such a nice conversation with the boys this morning. I would really like them to come here for the weekend. You're probably thinking it's too early. I'd like you and Grace to stop by today or tomorrow to make sure I'm ready for their arrival. If you decide not, I understand, but I ask you to give me a chance." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then she continued. I was about to say his name when suddenly, "Sorry, I just didn't expect this. I don't even know what to say. I think Grace and I will stop by tonight. Maybe around 5:30. Will this suit you?" "Certainly. Listen, Dawn. I know your fear. I understand. So I suggest that you stop by. I am ready to talk with both of you, both together and separately. Ask me anything you want. I want the boys to be safe, and I will make sure they are safe. If you don't agree with this, we'll wait until you're sure." I tried to make the house look like mine and make guests feel welcome. The phone rang. "Hello." "Hey, baby, I heard you got out of rehab. How about we meet?" "Damn, it's Henry. Glad to hear your voice. It would be wonderful to meet you. I hope my voice sounded sincere, although I had no intention of dating Henry, and I hope it's true. Don't put it off until later." "Oh, Henry, I can't. I have guests in an hour. I'm just starting to come to my senses. How about next week?" "Okay, next week. Where are you staying?" As if I would tell him this. "Henry, I need to go. Let's talk next week." I ended the conversation. This changes everything. Henry wants to make sure I'm back in his network. He can't afford for me to just walk around knowing about his business. If I were a betting man, I'd bet that he'd already found me through that call. I opened the door. "Grace, Dawn, it's so nice of you to come. Please come in." I prepared snacks and offered them soft drinks, apologizing that there would be no alcohol in the house for the time being. We chatted for a while. They were polite and tried to understand whether it would be safe for me to entrust the boys. "Dawn, an hour before your arrival, they called me. I need to tell you about this. This means that my request to take the boys away is premature. I don't like this, Elaine." Dawn's voice became serious. "I wish he would call me Laney, but that's a question for another day." "I don't like it either. You won't like this story, but I have to be honest with you, otherwise I'll never see my sons. This is a great offer, Elaine. I hope you're serious." "I'm serious, and I intend to live like this." This is what happened. I was raised to believe that if I found a great husband and had children, my life would be complete. In college, I looked for the perfect man instead of getting an education. I found him, and you know how it ended. So I wasn't the ideal man. Dawn, dear Dawn, of course you were perfect. There was only one bad piece in our puzzle, and that was me. I had love, sex, family, and all the material things I wanted. But I had no sense of self, and I became bored. I found a man, Henry Martin, who offered me this stuff. This afternoon he called me. While he is looking for me, it is not safe for the boys to be here. Don looked at me as if he was seeing me for the first time. "Is this who you are?" This is who I was. I'm still afraid that I might become like that again, but that's not who I am now. I continued to tell him about my time as a call girl wife and how the call from Henry meant he could find me. We talked about restraining orders, and I told him that it works with regular people, but not with criminals like Henry. If I try to stop him from seeing me, he'll just send someone else to deal with me. Grace was silent. She was almost hidden from my view, with Henry between us. She seemed to be there as a support for him and didn't want to interfere. She leaned forward. "What are you going to do?" I smiled at her. Her question was legitimate. She cared. "Thank you, that's so sweet. Dawn found a good woman. The truth is that I have no idea. I have to convince Henry that I'm no longer a threat. When I do this, he will stop calling, and I will let you know." We all looked at each other. There was obvious tension on their faces. The hope that Henry would simply disappear was as close to false as it could be. For honest, law-abiding people, there was no real alternative. We didn't find anything to say and didn't say anything. We talked a little more, agreed to stay in touch, and they left. October 16th. Wow, I don't know how many people are trying to return to normal life. having gone from an ordinary wife, mother employee to a woman of easy virtue with addiction and back. I'm sure there are few of them. I lived for decades as a normal person, and for several months as a woman of easy virtue. Why did all the scars and splinters remain from these few months? That's not a question, right? No matter how long you spend doing everything right, it can be ruined in a matter of moments, let alone months. There's one unfortunate truth I'm learning: as quickly as you can ruin everything, it takes a lot of time and effort to get back on track. Until now, all my significant efforts have been aimed at getting rid of the dependence on them in my head. Today is my first day at work. I work as an assistant to a group of engineers in a manufacturing company. The company has a strict policy against informal relationships and sexual harassment. So naturally, Henry had me seduce and sleep with my boss at the first opportunity. So I owned it. He is a good person and smart. As soon as I pressed him, he realized that we were holding each other in the same place. Since sleeping with me once meant losing his job, there would be no loss from sleeping with me a second time or 50 more. Now I have to figure out how to tell him that I have changed. I walked into the office and saw my boss at his desk. I went to him. He saw me and immediately stood up. "Laney, nice to see you." "Hello, Mark. Good to see you too." "Laney, can we talk for a minute about your return?" "Of course," I said with uncertainty in my voice. He pointed to the conference room. "Great, he wants to express that he is still not averse to continuing our meetings." We entered the hall, and he closed the door. "Laney, there have been changes in my life. I met a woman, and now we only have each other. What happened between us must end. I hope you remain as humble as you are." I broke into a wide smile. "Mark, congratulations. I'm happy for you and for myself. I also need to change my life. I'm going to put the last few months behind me. There weren't any. In other words, there is nothing to hide. You and I will remain employees and boss, as always." What a turn. To be honest, if Mark was still single and wanted to continue our meetings, I'm sure he would have convinced me of this. The problem is that he is 5 years younger than me, and there would be nothing more than casual sex between us. I've just started my journey back to life, but it seems there are no half measures. Everything I've done that doesn't match who I want to become needs to go away. I got to my desk and my cell phone rang. It was Henry. "Good morning, Henry." "Hello, baby. You said to wait until this week. I couldn't wait any longer. When will we meet?" "Henry, I'll be honest. I've lost everything. I need to get something back. The most important thing to me is my sons. I can't keep doing what I've been doing and still get my sons back. No offense, but we won't be dating." "It hurts," said this slippery guy. "A meeting doesn't mean you have to do something. Just two old friends catching up." "Two old friends? Oh well. He loved me because I brought in a good income. Maybe I can pull him off." "How nice. Give me some time to recover, please." "We won't wait long." His tone was only slightly less than a threat. "Henry, let me offer you this. I'm going to change my life. In a few months, no one will know that we ever met." "We won't wait long." The same tone. He hung up. "I can do everything right, but one meeting with Henry will ruin everything. He'll somehow mix something in with me, and I'll lose it again. I'll go in the opposite direction. I'll never go back. The only question is whether he's testing me to make sure I don't tell anyone, or whether he's planning to take me out of the game, dead or alive." I returned home. Home has definitely become like that. I felt safe here. I also felt lonely, too lonely. The boys would solve this problem, at least for the next few years, but this is impossible with Henry still looming nearby. Someone you could drink with after work and fall asleep in the same bed with every night was also important, but now it was secondary. I decided I wanted to talk to Grace. We weren't friends yet, but she was the one who insisted that I live in the house. She must have a big, big heart. She has my man, but I don't feel offended. I lost him myself, and of all my mistakes, I think this was not one of them. He is stable, but I want a little unpredictability. He is unconditional love, and I want someone who will punch me in the neck if I step out of line. He's so hard not to love, And maybe I'm crazy, but I think that's what led me to do stupid things. Don was the kind of person who would do anything for me if I asked. But I did not explain my needs, and accordingly, he did not satisfy them. I dialed number 1 on the speed dial. Hello, Elaine. What's happened? Dawn, I need to talk to Grace. I want to discuss this with you first. She showed me that she cares about me, and I need a woman's opinion. I'll tell her that she can share everything with you. Do you mind if I talk to her? Of course, he said, as if it wasn't worth much thought. Grace, Elaine is on my line. I heard him say that, then he spoke into the phone again. She was in the other room. She'll come over now. Elaine, how can I help? Grace, I have a big favor to ask of you. Maybe we can meet and have a serious conversation about this. Certainly. Sorry, but you admit it's a little weird. Yes, I know. But it was you who insisted that I live in the house. You are the closest thing to a friend to me right now. All my ex-friends are either on the other side of the law or wondering why I cheated on my husband. You know me and still support me. An awkward pause followed. Sorry, I'm probably not being too encouraging. I'll be honest. I'm on your side and I'm afraid for you. And this makes me fear for Dawn's sons. They are almost the most important people in my life. You were the right person to call. You even predicted the topic of conversation. I want to think through all the possible approaches I can take with Henry. He won't just leave. Moreover, I'm almost sure that he wants to send me into the darkness. How dangerous is Henry? Good question, Grace. I think I can describe it. He has a friend from the past. He supplies Henry without going through the usual networks. I think it somehow saves them money and they think it's safer. Thus, Henry acts alone. He makes his own decisions and is not accountable to anyone for them. Can we talk at your place? Certainly. Why? Elaine, I don't want anything to do with Henry. Maybe it's too conspiratorial. But I can take a taxi and come to you wearing a wig. When can you come? I'm having a terrible week. How about Saturday morning? At 9 in the morning, I will prepare brunch. We ended the conversation. October 28th. I made coffee, prepared ingredients for Denver-style omelets, and chopped fresh fruit into a bowl. Exactly at 9 o'clock, an inconspicuous car drove into the yard, and a brunette with short hair in baggy clothes got out. A moment later, the doorbell rang. I thought she looked Halloween-themed, so I said, "Trick or treat." It's a shame I don't have a cat mask or costume. I feel out of place meeting you as myself. Welcome. Grace laughed. Do you want to know what Dawn said? What if Henry decides to come in right now? What's the point in all this masquerade? He won't be able to deal with both of us fast enough for me to call the police. That's what I said. Well, here I am. What do you want to talk about? Let's sit down for a while. And then fruits and omelets. We sat down on the sofa. Henry called twice this week. Both calls were almost identical. He wants us to meet. I refused. He sounded disappointed, and it was almost a threat. What do you think he wants? I think he wants me to come back to him and will continue to put pressure on me until I'm so stressed that I'll do whatever he says again. Do you think he will hurt you if you don't come back? Grace's face showed genuine concern. This is just a guess. I think he will keep pushing until he gets his way. If I try to stop him, he will see me as a threat and will act against me. You can't win in that scenario. That's why I wanted to talk to you. I'm trying to find a way where this doesn't end with me deciding that since he won't allow me to meet my sons anyway, I have to do what he wants. Are you sure he won't just leave it? Grace, I wish it would be difficult for him to keep up the pressure. But all he needs is a 2-minute phone call once or twice a week. So it's a matter of psychology. If you are timid, he will increase the pressure. If you are aggressive, he will play on your masculinity. Stay calm. I think your chance is to remain calm and hope he loses interest. Let's eat. Maybe the food will give us an idea. I stood up to make some omelets. We ate, laughed, and chatted, but no new ideas emerged. November 7th. I remained calm during Henry's calls. He kept calling. These calls were exhausting me. What depressed me the most was the realization that it was all my fault. I found Henry myself. It is one thing to understand what is happening, but quite another to live with it and not give in. I started to get depressed. My cell phone rang, and it was Grace. Grace, oh God, I'm so glad you called. I think by the time we finish talking, you'll be more than happy. That would be wonderful. What's happened? Today, I had lunch with my colleague from the Substance Use Disorder Laboratory. He was in a bad mood because he had to fire one of his key employees. I don't know much about that department. It was small for many years, but over the last year, it has grown a lot, as he said. Unfortunately, substance abuse is something I understand very well. Right? But this, as it turned out, is not so bad. I would like to believe. I sat here almost in despair because I had made the wrong choice myself. How can this be good news? Our company is researching drugs that can help fight addiction. But the point is, it's not just about the drugs. This will require behavioral changes, and they recruited 3 former addicts to develop strategies to help other addicts. The problem is that all 3 of them relapsed and started using again. He had to fire each of them. I would love to take on such a project. You have an interview. All you have to do is call and schedule one. How much does it pay, you know? Yes. The entry level is Technician 8, which is a minimum of $96K per year. If you accept, they will pay for your master's degree and your salary will increase by another 20%, with plenty of room for growth. Damn it. My salary will almost double in a couple of years. Who should I call? She gave me contact information and said that she promised her colleague that I would not lose my temper. If I can convince them of this, they will hire me. How will Henry take this? I'm afraid that he will see this as a step away from him. He definitely won't like it. The other bad side is if the company asks me to contact users I know, many of them get their substances through Henry. He definitely won't tolerate this. But this is moving forward. Henry won't know I'm changing jobs, and I'll leave instructions here not to tell anyone where I am. Perhaps Henry will lose track of me. Perhaps the pigs will fly. November 17th. I just completed my first week at my new job. It's like a dream come true. There is still no evidence or way to prove that my house has anything to do with this, but the circumstantial evidence is off the charts. There is one minus. Henry seems to have some kind of telepathic gift. He called on Monday and could tell by my voice that something had changed. He asked what exactly, and I said nothing. When I refused to tell him what kind of work it was, he became suspicious. I turned into my apartment complex around 5 p.m. It was already starting to get dark. It seemed to me that a car was following me, but when I turned onto my street and then drove into the entrance, the car was no longer there. I entered the house and made sure that all the doors were double locked and all the windows were closed and locked. I have a security system that I can turn on when I'm home. I turned it on. I looked in the refrigerator and found a few things to snack on. I ate, drank Dr. Pepper, and began nervously pacing around the house. I was at home for more than an hour, and when I looked out the window, it was already dark. The moon was not visible. I turned on the outside lights, wishing there were more of them. Something's wrong. I can feel it. I turned off all the lights in the house. She sat down at the island between the kitchen and living room and began to look at the windows into the courtyard. I could sort of see through them. But was this enough? Bright lights appeared on the sides of the house and in the backyard. There were screams, then more screams, and suddenly everything exploded. It looked like a shootout had started. Everything stopped within a minute. The lanterns quickly moved towards the house. I called 911. This is 911, stating the nature of your emergency. They're shooting in my yard. Henry Martin is trying to kill me. What is your address? I dictated the address, and there was a pause on the other end, no more than 20 seconds. The operator has returned. The police are already on the spot. They confirm the shooting. The threat has been eliminated. Please stay in the house. They are checking to see if there was only one shooter. How could the police be here? They responded to your previous call. I didn't make any other calls. If you've ever sat on a tile floor in complete darkness, you know that time moves slowly. The doorbell rang. I looked at the phone 12:13 at night. I went to the front door and shouted through it. "Who's there?" "Police, ma'am." "We'll take a step back. Look out the window to make sure it's us." I looked out. 4 uniformed officers stood in front of the house. With them was a large dog on a leash, sniffing out something. Her guide was out of shape. Further down the street, there were at least 3 police cars with their lights flashing. I decided that I could open the door. I turned on all the lights in the hall and opened the door. "Are you safe?" "Yes, it seems you have solved this problem. Please come in." All 4 came in with weapons ready. They asked permission to check the house to make sure I was alone, and I immediately agreed. A couple of minutes later, they returned to the living room, now brightly lit. "Ma'am, we were investigating a traffic accident a block and a half from here." The neighbors who share the backyard noticed our lights and started looking around. When they looked out the window, you turned on the outside lights and they saw an armed man. They called 911. We approached your backyard from 3 sides, illuminated a man in a hoodie, and ordered him to drop his weapon. He turned and fired towards the end of your area. As a result, he was mortally wounded. Your 911 call came in after that, and you said Henry Martin was trying to kill you. May I ask why you think he wanted to do this? I don't know for sure, but I can guess why. About a year ago, I was looking for a more vibrant life. I found Henry, and he introduced me to illegal substances. He became my supplier. Towards the end of this summer, I began to move away from it all. I went through rehab and was clean by mid-October. Since I got out of rehab, Henry has been calling me a couple times a week, trying to get me back. Why today? What has changed? I don't know this for sure. But on Monday, I started a new job. I work in a laboratory that is looking for methods to combat addiction. When Henry found out that I had changed jobs and I refused to tell him what exactly I was doing, he became wary. Do you think he found out? I think the current situation suggests that yes, but this is just a guess. We didn't talk anymore. I left them my phone number and allowed them to review my calls since leaving rehab. I explained that they would find several calls to Dawn and Grace and explained our relationship. They assured me that unless they found evidence that I was involved in the trade, I would not hear from them again. November 18th. I woke up at 6:30 am, still tired, but with a lot to do. I drank 2 cups of coffee and called Grace. "Hello, Elaine." "It's a little early for Saturday," she said, but quite cheerfully. "I wanted to get in touch with you before the police did." "Police?" There was real alarm in her voice. "They were here last night. Henry tried to break into the house with a gun. He died. And are you all right? Right? Grace, it was a miracle or magic at home. The police were investigating an accident just a block from my house. My neighbors looked outside just as I turned on the street light. They saw Henry with a gun and called 911. Police rushed to the scene and Henry appeared to panic and shot at them. This was his last mistake. The man is dead, and the only thing that comes to my mind is, wonderful, we both laughed. The main reason I'm calling is because I know the 3 of you are planning to spend Thanksgiving together. Could we do it here? 4 of us, or rather, 5 of us. I'll ask Dawn, but I think so. We talked about this last night. The best divorces are when the exes learn to be friends and the children benefit from that maturity. Dawn isn't awake yet, but as soon as he is, we'll call you back. We have a lot of plans ahead. Who would have thought? So little time and so many changes. Admit it, brother, you are hiding something. You don't tell me how it happened that you got so lucky. I was talking to my half-brother, Walter Bicknell. He suddenly became a rich man, and it made me angry. Our mother was, well, I guess you could call her a loose woman. She was married to Walter's father, a solid man, a real hard worker. But she fell in love with my father, a handsome, athletic, and somewhat lazy playboy. Walter is just one of my 4 half-siblings, all of them have different mothers. My father was more successful at making women mothers than at becoming a real member of the family. My mother raised me and my older brother alone. Fortunately, Walter's father, although he did not communicate with his ex-wife, took pity on her and helped her financially as best he could. Walter is 8 years older than me. When he turned 18, he left for college, and our mother became completely poor. She tried to work and find a new husband. Unfortunately, most of the people she found were more like my father than Walter. I grew up hating the institution of marriage. They say that if you grow up in an atmosphere of violence, you are more likely to become an abuser. And although I hate to admit it, I have become just like my father. I use my attractiveness and natural charm to seduce women, especially married women. You would think that I would ever learn from my mistakes, but no. Some husbands simply divorce their wives, while others seek revenge and then divorce. More than once I had to leave the city to avoid the wrath of my deceived husband. But I'm getting off topic. My brother Walt won the lottery in his state some time ago. Now he's swimming in money. He returned home, and our mother suddenly had housing and a level of security she never dreamed of and feels she doesn't deserve. But I know what I deserve, so I returned home to help my mom too. Of course, I have no money, no skills, no special desire, but I still live with my mother to help. Walt, you know I will torture you until you tell me. So go ahead and post it. Jim, it's me, by the way, Jim Snyder. I'll tell you. But I'm not sure if you'll believe it. Damn it, I'm still not sure I believe it myself. He paused for a minute, as if he was considering how to tell his story. Let me start with this. One day, I bought a local newspaper. I don't know why, I never buy newspapers or read news on paper. I get all the information online. He looked at me and continued. I opened the newspaper and came across an article about some guy who won the lottery and ended up in the newspaper. It wasn't a big win, but I thought, what a lucky bastard. So what? Someone won a prize, so what? Get to the point. I tried to look interested, but in reality, I didn't care about his story. I wanted to know how to win the lottery. Jim, stop being such an asshole. I actually don't have to tell you anything. You're pissing me off just by sitting here now that I bought my mom a nice house. Where were you when she lived in that terrible apartment? I probably should have slowed down. Sorry, you're right. Continue, please. I folded the newspaper and went back to work. I was out for a walk during my lunch break, something I've never done before. And here's what's strange. I literally came face to face with the same guy whose photo was in the newspaper. I told him I just saw his picture and that he was lucky. Walt paused again. Jim, he looked at me and said, "You have no idea how lucky I am." And then he told me. Walt looked at me as if he was deciding whether to continue, and then he spoke again. Well, he told me it was all about the house he was renting. This house brought him a lottery win. Did the house win? I see, I said, trying to look serious, but my words just dripped with sarcasm. That's exactly what I thought. To hell with you, Jim. Believe it or not, it's all the same. He convinced me that the house was the reason for our meeting. This made me rent this house, and here is the result in front of you. Well, there's clearly more to this story. Why do I find myself in such situations again? I make him talk, tell him what I need, and then I ruin everything. Exactly. And I'm not going to waste my words on you. I forgot what an absolute asshole you can be. You sneak in here, take advantage of Mom's kindness, and get her to talk me into giving you money. You just don't have a bottom. He grinned a sinister smile and said, renting that house is the reason the other guy won, and that's the reason why I won. This is what you are looking for, but you won't get anything from me. I miss those good old days when I could just ignore you. I'm leaving. Walt got angry, got into his new Porsche, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Crap. I probably could have done it better. What now? Like his father, Walt is a down-to-earth, level-headed, hard-working man who never approved of my lifestyle. I won't see him again, probably never. I waited until my mother came home and we chatted for a while. When I thought the moment was right, I asked, Mom, do you have Walt's old address from before he won the lottery? As much as I loved my brother, I didn't think about him from his 18th birthday until he won. Mom found the address and gave it to me. She wanted to know where Volt was, and I lied to her, telling her he had an appointment and would be back tomorrow. I didn't really know when he'd be back, but it was a safe lie. One way or another, I'd be gone by then. I stayed with my mom for one last night. In the morning, I said goodbye to her and asked her to tell Volt that I was glad to see him again, and I went to look for my luck. It was almost a 1,000-mile journey. Mom talked Walt into giving me $100,000 for a new business venture. Walt knew that business and I were as incompatible as oil and water, but he loved his mom, bless his heart. I had time to think. The house causes lottery wins. And why is that so? You know, time is of little help when you ask yourself such a question. I drove a little over 300 miles and stopped to use the restroom, get something to eat, and get some gas. How the hell can a house choose a lottery winner? Damn, I really ruined everything. There was no use calling Volt. He's annoyingly practical if it's important to me. Why didn't I listen when he was ready to tell me everything? And since I didn't listen then, why would he repeat it again? Crap. Well, Walt said he rented a house. I think my move is to rent it, and maybe then it will become clear how the house helps. Sounds like a plan. I drove another 350 miles and stopped for the night. If I need to call the owner and tell him I want to rent a house, it would be a good idea to see him first. I entered the address into the navigator and arrived a little after 1 in the afternoon. The area is unremarkable, in the heart of the middle class. However, this house was going through significant renovation work. What stood out was a tall wooden fence around most of the backyard, likely a pool fence. Crews were still working on the fence. I stopped, got out of the car, and caught the attention of one of the workers. Wow, this is really great work. I'm sorry, but it seems a little over the top for this area. Maybe you need to talk to the foreman. He looked back and shouted, "Charlie." The gate opened and Charlie appeared, probably the same foreman. The worker said that I was interested in the project. Charlie looked at me, interested in the pool. You know, maybe I just thought it was too much for our area. It was worth pretending that I was one of the locals. I thought so too, but this is an unusual case. The owner of the house rents it out to his ex-wife. They have 2 sons. The father wants the children to have a swimming pool. Apparently, he has one at home. So he hired me to build a swimming pool for his boys. We talked for a while, and my plan changed. Apparently, the loving father wasn't going to kick his sons out so I could win the lottery. Now I just had to hope that his ex-wife wasn't a total disappointment and find a way to get into the house. With any luck, I'll avoid paying rent, get some sex, and win the lottery before I move somewhere nicer. I needed a way to get in. Somehow knocking on the door and saying, "Hello, let's get acquainted, let's sleep, I'll come to your place, win the lottery, and leave," seemed a little harsh. I watched the house for several weeks. It wasn't easy. The lady led a measured life, and nothing changed her. She took the children to school and went to work. Another woman, whom I identified as their father's new flame, brought the children back, either alone or with the father, and waited for the mother to return home. She didn't go anywhere, didn't accept anyone. She was a devoted mother and nothing more. It looked like the ex-husband and the new lady visited them occasionally, but that was all. Perhaps the path to the goal lay through the owner of the house. I did my research. The house belonged to Don Wilson, owner of Responsive Reality. My path through the front door of the house was through the current tenant's ex-husband. How crazy does that sound? This took another 6 weeks. During this time, I met Don and convinced him that I was new to town and looking for a good home to do business. We looked at a few houses, and I told him I was lonely. My wife cheated on me, so I decided to divorce her and move to a new city. We got to know each other well, or rather, I recognized him, and he recognized who I was pretending to be. One day, he said that he knew a person I needed to meet. I almost managed not to give him a high five with joy. I knocked on the door. Don opened it. "Jim, nice to see you. Laney." A moment later, Lainey came in, an attractive woman, that was for sure. We were introduced, and she offered me a soft drink. Soft drink? She not only lives like a nun, but also drinks like a nun. Oh, great, of course, anything dietary will suit me, I said with slight enthusiasm, which I even liked. I had not yet lost my skills. We're going to grill burgers. I'm still cooking. Let me help, I said, flashing my best smile. Is it true? If you want. I love things like this. I haven't done this for a long time. It'll be fun. Fun, I say, but for the sake of big money, you have to make sacrifices. When we walked into the kitchen, I met Grace, Don's other half. I was surprised how well she and Lainey got along. The sliding glass door was open, and we could hear the boys splashing in the pool. Lainey said she was working on a project to develop drugs and behavior modification techniques that would help people overcome addiction. She was clearly passionate about her work, that much I could tell. Grace was some kind of genius. She had about a dozen degrees, and even after she explained what she did, I still didn't understand anything. I don't know where Don was most of the time. I think he preferred to be outside with the boys. All in all, it was a great evening. Although I find it easier to seduce someone with vodka than with Dr. Pepper, you can't have it all. By the end of the evening, I found an opportunity to be alone with Lainey and asked her out. She readily agreed, saying that I would be her first date since the divorce. A good sign, I thought. The date went well, and several others followed. On our fourth date, she got serious over dinner. Jim, we're fine. I would like to take our relationship to the next level. I certainly did everything possible for this, but every time I was rejected. Well, you know that would make me very happy. But you need to know something about me. I was unhappy in my marriage to Dawn. I started an affair with a man who led me to self-destruction. Is that why you never drink? She looked at me as if asking why this was so important. Well, yes, it took me to bad places, but if we're going to move on, I want you to know that I have a past. I almost revealed that I liked this past, but I came to my senses in time. Instead, he said, "The past is in the past. We have a future." She frowned a little. I hope so. But my sons are very important to me, and you don't even know their names. I could have objected, but she was right. I know one of them is named Tim, or maybe Tom Dam. Better get away from this topic. The boys always stay with their father when we go out somewhere. If you want us to get to know each other better, let's spend time with them at your place. This clearly lifted her spirits. We left dinner without dessert and went back to her house. For the first time, I was able to appreciate her charms, her professionally honed charms. I've never experienced anything like this. This is how our romance began. Trying to figure out how a house could help you win the lottery wasn't so easy. What should I do? Sit and stare at the wall, asking questions. I was glad she said her sons were important to her. Who would have thought? I learned their names, John and Tim, and did my best to show interest in them. They were little scoundrels, but it seems I managed to deceive them. Time passed. My life has become hell. It was like an old black and white TV series from the 50s. We were in the house enjoying life with two annoying little idiots and expecting the same thing tomorrow. All I can say is that my lottery winnings must be big. One afternoon, 6 numbers suddenly flashed into my head. Blue 4, 18 and 21, gold 6, 7 and 24. It was strange. It was like I was looking at a photo of a lottery ticket. This state has a stupid lottery. 3 drawings and 2 colors, blue and gold. I got up to go and buy a ticket. The boys were acting up. Our game would have been ruined if I had left in the middle of it. As if I cared. I went out and bought a ticket for the Friday and Saturday drawings. When I returned, everything went to hell. Lainey said it wouldn't work out. Firstly, her sons hated me. They sensed my insincerity. I started to tell her about Walter and the lottery and pulled the ticket out of my shirt pocket. But then I decided, screw it. I put the ticket back in my pocket and left. The house had already given me the numbers, and I didn't have to endure this boring life anymore, like in Leave It to Beaver. I left and Lainey slammed the door behind me. She cried, "Women always cry when our relationship ends." I got into the car and drove to my apartment. When the anger passed, I thought, life is good. I reached into my shirt pocket and damn, there was no ticket. Apparently, I missed the pocket when I tried to put it back at her house. I turned around and ran back to her house. She wasn't there. She probably went to cry on Grace's shoulder. I looked out the living room window and saw a lottery ticket on the floor. I had to pick him up. I looked around. All doors and windows were locked, but she never locked the sliding door leading to the pool. A high fence protected the entry, and it was almost like the inside of a house. If I could get in there, I would go in and leave with a ticket. It was getting dark, and no one could notice me. Lainey always set the alarm, so my only way out was through that sliding door. It wasn't connected to the security system. There was a maple tree in the front yard. It was possible to climb on it. One of the branches reached the roof. I started to formulate a plan. I climbed a tree and, surprisingly, the roof slope was steeper than I expected. It's one thing to look at it, and quite another to climb it in the last twilight. I reached the ridge of the roof and began to climb down the backside. I slipped. Damn it! I was sliding down, unable to stop. Luckily, there was a lantern nearby to illuminate the pool. I grabbed it when I was almost flying off the roof. Crap, he broke free. The fall was only about 8 feet. I could have survived it. Elaine. I was sad. More than just sad when I thought about it. I took the boys to Dawn. Grace and I talked for a while, and I felt better. Finding new love, as happened to them, is rare. We put the boys to bed, and I decided I was tired. I returned home around 11 p.m. The house was dark. I thought I left the pool light on, but it was too late. I'll check in the morning. The boys left their game in the living room. I collected it, stuffed it back into the box, and put it on the table. I'm going to sleep. I woke up at 6:30, as usual, and started making coffee. I looked towards the pool, and there was a man lying there with a lantern in his hand. He looked dead. I called 911. That day was a complete nightmare. Jim turned out to be dead. Police were able to determine that he had climbed a tree and was trying to get over the roof. They saw broken tiles along which he slid down and grabbed the lantern. And then the strangest thing began. Although the lamp was installed recently, the mount simply broke. A surveillance video camera recorded Jim falling. Apparently, the light shorted out and Jim was electrocuted. Police said the likelihood of all these events happening at once is virtually zero. They wanted to know why Jim was trying to break into my house if we had just broken up. I didn't have an answer. After investigating, the police left, saying they would notify Jim's relatives. I never heard from them again. Dawn and Grace came to see me on Saturday. I was glad to see them. Walter Bicknell called me yesterday, Dawn said, looking at me as if that name should mean something to me. Excuse me, should I know this name? It turns out, yes. Walter was the previous tenant of the house who won the lottery. He had, well, more accurately, had a half-brother, Jim Snyder. Walter told me his brother was a worthless bastard. He always had some kind of scheme. The latter, it turned out, was to return to the house where Walter bought his winning ticket and find a way to win himself. Was Jim an avid buyer of lottery tickets? I thought about the night he interrupted the game to go buy a ticket. I went to the game box, opened it, and found a ticket for today's drawing. Yes, he bought a ticket. Maybe I should call Walter and give it to him, I asked, hoping Dawn would say no. Walter said that after the last visit, their mother completely disowned her half-brother. They're both done with him and don't even want what's left in his bank account. They asked to use it to bury him. I thought for a minute. Dawn, Grace, when you think about it, Walter Bicknell actually brought us all together. I proposed to split this ticket among 3. And then I started laughing uncontrollably. Grace asked, "What's wrong with you, Lainey?" I just made such a big deal out of some probably worthless lottery ticket. Don looked at his watch. The draw will start in 20 minutes. Everything will become clear soon. You wouldn't believe the tension there was. First, they announced the blue winning numbers from yesterday too, 4, 15, 18, 20, and 21. I was overjoyed. Don told me to calm down because there were still golden numbers to be played. We waited. They named them 6, 7, 9, 12, 14, and 24. I started jumping for joy. We guessed all 6 numbers. Don told me to wait because there was another draw ahead and our chances were slim anyway. The boys came out of their playroom. They wanted to know what all the fuss was about. So we all ended up in the same room, a strange group. 2 boys, their mother, stepmother, and father, all cheering for 6 numbers. They started. Blue 18, blue 4, gold 24, gold 7, blue 21. I jumped up, and so did Tim. We were happy. There was only 1 number left, and our win was almost guaranteed. Don warned us, "Listen to what they say. 7 numbers left. Our chances are 1 in 7. The mood immediately dropped. The presenter on the screen said that at this stage, 15 tickets match the 5 numbers already drawn. Each of these ticket holders is guaranteed to receive $10,000. If the number 12 is blue or gold, there will be no big winners this week. Any other number, and the winner or winners will receive the largest prize in history, $42 million. She asked her partner to press the button. He did it. The number was gold. He took it out of the car and turned it towards the camera 6. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.